Hi, I'm Josh Cadillac, and welcome to my podcast, Know Your Shit. I've been blessed to see great success, as well as seeing the bottom up close and personal in 2008. And if there's one lesson I've learned, is that if you want to have success and differentiate yourself from everyone else out there, you need to know your shit. As a successful real estate and crypto investor and an educator, it drives me insane that people do not immerse themselves in their craft. Everyone is so busy advertising and testing new sales techniques, they forget the most important thing, the product. Here I want to talk to the folks that got this right, the most successful people in the world in every industry. Bring them to you and find out what they learned in their business that made it great. When you listen to my podcast, you will know for sure that the topics and experts we have on have one thing in common. They know their shit. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Know Your Shit podcast, where our knowledge and pride in what we do drives us to be excellent. My name is Josh Cadillac, and I'll be in the driver's seat for today's show as we strive to learn how to stop doing deals and start closing customers for life. We got a great show lined up for you today, and without further ado, let's get started. We're joined by an amazing guest, Mr. Michael O'Donnell. Michael, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us.
Josh, what a pleasure to be here. And we've both traveled some amazing distances in the last few days to be sitting where we're at. And it's just a real big pleasure to be here with you. Thanks, Josh.
Good to be here. So good to have you here. I'm going to say, Michael, best place to start probably is, rather than me trying to take and tell people, why don't you tell them, what is it that you do?
So I'm a solar salesman, Josh. I close solar sales, and I do that by having conversations with prospects that are qualified, cold calling, just a tremendous amount of cold calling. We got a live studio audience here today, and today we're going to be talking about knocking on doors and introducing ourselves to prospects that have never heard us, never talked to us about solar before. We're in the solar business, and we're going to be making those contacts by literally knocking on doors and saying hello to folks and saying, hey, I know you're not thinking about a solar quote, but here's the reasons why you should be, and can we get one for you?
Love it. So it's definitely a tougher sale, if you will, because you're coming to a customer that really doesn't even know the product that you're selling a lot of times, which is very different than the normal real estate sale that we have.
Well, everyone in our industry is trying to get away from that, because knocking on doors is psychologically brutal, but it's unbelievably lucrative. So why do they want to get away from something that's really lucrative? Because it is psychologically brutal. Unless, of course, you're employing the tactics that salesmen have been employing since the days of selling, carpet in the Middle East at the time of Christ, which is to go up to folks and say, hey, would you consider buying my product? And so what everyone in the world is trying to do is to find a way to be in a position to close without having to do the work to get there. And so what are they doing? They're networking, they're Facebooking, they're buying leads, they're doing all those sorts of things. And what do? They put us into situations where we're talking to shoppers, where we're talking to people who are literally just out trying to get the best price. They're talking to 5 other people at the same time. They're doing everything but what we want, which is to ask one person who's not considering doing business with us to just sit down and take a look at a proposal and kind of go start this journey with us that's going to end with them being in a position that's so much financially better off, they're not even going to be able to believe it. In the solar world, our biggest objection, Josh, is that when people look at a solar presentation, they literally and actually say, wait a minute, if this were true, if all these numbers are correct, how come all of my neighbors don't already have solar? In other words, and sometimes they'll use these words, come on, man, like this is just too good to be true. What the heck? Yep. If this were true, everybody would already have this. And that's literally our largest objection, is to overcome that idea that if what we're presenting is true, then it's such a no-brainer. There's no way I wouldn't already have it.
Well, so I mean, there's a few things there that to unpack, Michael, that I really love. One is the unspoken that you had there, which is this addiction that our society has to pleasure and avoiding pain. And by avoiding pain, I mean avoiding the unpleasantness of the perceived idea that there's going to be rejection from having these interactions. And look, you know, you work out long enough, you develop calluses, right? You do anything long enough, exactly. You start to take and you build up a tolerance for it. And one of the important things that I've always thought in sales is to recognize and to sort of state what you already did. Hey, look, there's a part of this that's going to suck a little bit. And the trick is to know it's going to suck, and B, manage yourself going in with the expectation, I'm not going to hit a home run every time I go to the bat. If you go to play baseball and you're used to succeeding most of the time, you're going to get your ass handed to you, because you could be, if you succeed 3 out of 10 times when you go to the plate, you're in the Hall of Fame.
Dude.
And so you got to manage that, right? You got to manage it.
Well, so the difference between the guys that make the roster in Major League Baseball and the ones that make the Hall of Fame, the guys who make the roster, they strike out 7 out of 10 times. Mm-hmm. Literally, they're batting 300. They're carrying their weight. They make the roster. The guys that make the Hall of Fame, they consistently only strike out 6 times out of 10. They're batting 400. You do that lifetime, you're going to be in the Hall of Fame. So the difference between making the roster and Hall of Fame is only having 6 out of 10 say no instead of 7 out of 10 say no. And sales is exactly the same thing. Exactly.
Absolutely. And it's managing yourself. One of the things, and the book that I just finished actually talks a lot about this idea. Yeah. Is that one of the things that we don't really do is we don't get ourselves right in sales. And this is one of the ideas. Some of the ideas in my book are very real estate related, but some of them I think transcend, which is when you're in sales, you function as your own boss. You are your own HR department. You have to take and keep yourself motivated. You have to keep yourself going. And if there's this perpetual kick in the cojones that's happening, that you're going out there and it's a real thing, you feel this rejection. You need to figure out for yourself as the CEO of your company, you LLC, the one that's doing this, how you're going to manage that within yourself, how you're going to keep yourself motivated and moving forward. Because that's the only way to get through this thing, is to take and keep moving forward and start to realize some success, start to build up your ability to take and not strike out that one extra time and go from being somebody just trying to survive and make the roster to now.
And you know what? It doesn't even really matter whether you're just making the roster, especially in the solar world. Guys that are making the roster in the solar world, the minimum wage is $500,000 a year. Like if you're making the roster and you're at the top third of the leaderboard, you're in that top 20%, you're making $500,000 a year. If you're that guy that wants to lead the leaderboard and tune your skills to get to a point where you are, only striking out 6 times out of 10 instead of 7 times out of 10, it's $1 million, $1.5 million a year job. And people are like, what in the world? I wrote a book called No Matter What. And it's literally the 7-figure, it's a recipe for a 7-figure income in sales. And listen, you don't have to be Michael Jordan. You probably got to be Michael Jordan in a lot of industries to make a lot of, to make $1 million income. You don't need to do that in the solar world. You just have to work like you have a boss. And one of the problems that we have in the solar world, I'm suffering right now, Jason. I'm suffering that I had a dozen guys make over $100,000 in August and September. We have this sort of seasonal thing. And those guys aren't making anywhere close to that in September, October. So my numbers are doing this. Why? Because people are working for the thing that everyone in the world is working for, enough money not to get evicted.
Yep.
And if we can't replace that motivation with the fire singeing our butt because we can't make the rent, we can't make the mortgage, we're going to get kicked out of our house, our kids are having to get pulled out of school, we got to go move to a different neighborhood. If we can't replace that, and that's what drives everybody. Why at 8 o'clock, 7:30 in the morning, why do you see millions of people with their wrist just locked to a steering wheel, driving to an office they don't want to go to sit at a cubicle, strap on a headset, and do a job they would just as soon never, ever do again, but they do it every day, and they show up on time. They push a lawnmower for 8 hours a day. If we could get guys to do what you and I do, like a landscaper pushing a lawnmower for 8 hours a day, the money would just be so sick. And the problem is we don't have a boss tapping our toe going, dude, you're 15 minutes late. What's going on?
Absolutely.
Because we're 1099. But what we really, so there's 2 things you can do. You can either find people who are motivated by the fact that they're at the top of this enterprise, right? They're the CEO. You just said it. You're the CEO of an enterprise. Are you the kind of guy that's motivated by the fact that if you put in a full day, put in a hard day, you could literally make 2, 3, 4 times more money? Or are you the guy that's going to use that opportunity? Salesmen make more money than anybody else in that HR department. A good salesman's making more money than the CEO. Or are you going to use that lucrativeness to have put yourself in a situation where you can work, 6-7 hours a week and kind of pull it off, kind of mail it in, kind of get it done, kind of make the quota, make the $100,000 to $200,000 a year? Or are you, as the Wolf of Wall Street says, are you a one cooler guy or are you a four cooler guy? And that's the question you got to ask yourself.
Well, I mean, I think that breaking down that idea, and this is very much what I try to do, because in real estate we do a terrible job of product knowledge. We do a terrible job of selling the actual product that we have. You never see a real estate person talk about what's good about their product. We actually have the level of arrogance that we come to we come to the transaction expecting our customer to want our product without us ever having to take and tell them anything good about it. And so this looks a little bit differently little different in my industry, but it's absolutely the same, which is this idea of what the hell are you actually trying to do? Are you trying to get a paycheck or are you trying to build a business? And one of the number one questions I ask an agent, once I fill an agent in, once I tell a salesperson, hey, look, you are your own company, you LLC, and guess who the CEO of you LLC is? It's you. Who's the staff? Who is the staff of ULLC though? It's you as well. So let me ask you a question. How good is your CEO at getting your staff to do what the CEO knows the staff needs to do? If the answer is you're not very good. The problem,
Josh, one of the biggest problems is we suck at being our own boss. We suck at being the CEO. If there's nobody tapping their toe going, dude, why are you here at 8:15 instead of 8 o'clock? You're supposed to be at your office. You're supposed to be at your cubicle. Why are you late? And if you're late tomorrow, you're getting written up. If you're late a third day in a month, we're going to fire you, right? Why can car dealerships get someone to show up from noon until 10 and be there every single solitary day? Because they're waiting for people to come to the lot. That's because they got a boss standing over their shoulder, checking in on them, whether they're late, whether they're on time, whether they're delivering. And literally like 9/10 of the battle literally is showing up. But when you're in a business like real estate, where you're in charge of your schedule, you're in charge of your motivation, you're in charge of how often and how hard you show up, man, some people can do it. Some people can't. One of the things I specialize is helping people. And for 25 years, I had the boss. I had the corporate America. I had golden handcuffs, tying me to a 6-figure salary. And I got myself to deliver just enough to mail that quota in, to keep that 6-figure salary, to maybe double it, to do $100,000 to $200,000 a year, when I had the capacity to do $1 million to $2 million a year. Why was that? And it wasn't until I had the breakthrough when I was my own CEO and I hit a level that I knew I could hit, and then paid off all my bills, paid off all my debt. Solar is so lucrative that in a very short period of time, I paid off 40 years worth of 30 years worth of credit card debt. I had 40K in credit card debt. I had the big house, the big car. I had all that stuff, but I was dependent on making a couple $100,000 a year just to stay even, not to get ahead, not to become wealthy, but to just be in a place where I had to have that money every year. Why was I doing that? Because I did not feel the urgency of the time going away. And I'm quite a bit older than you, but you're not 20 years old either. We're starting to get to a point where we can see how much finite opportunity we have, finite amount of time that we have to make our mark in the world, to make our fortune in the world, to produce our own legacy, to produce wealth. Guys, every single solitary day that goes away, that's another opportunity that we lost. I didn't sense that through my 30s. I didn't sense that through my 40s. Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich talks about guys when they get into their 50s. I feel like I have an advantage over everybody in this room. There may be one or two more guys. We have a studio audience here who's in their 50s. When you hit your 50s, Napoleon Hill talks about the fact that you all of a sudden realize that you don't have decades to make your wealth. You don't have decades to make your mark. You don't have decades to make your legacy. And you start treating every day as if it is a precious commodity, and you start responding appropriately. That happened for me in solar. I realized that what I had was an unbelievable gold rush. Solar is a gold rush. Warren Buffett said that taking power, energy, and its centralized format, and then all of a sudden having it be distributed out to the people is going to be the largest transfer of wealth in the history of mankind. And what am I going to do? Sleep through it? Watch Netflix through it? Make just enough money to pay my bills? Or now that I find myself in a gold rush, am I really going to go after it? Am I going to nail it? Am I going to apply myself? And then how do I do that? And that's why I wrote this book. I was able to figure out how to take advantage of this moment and treat it appropriately based on the fact that I am in a gold rush, and do the things that I need to do every single day, no matter what. And it's very, very different than I looked like in my 30s and my 40s. The way I look in my 50s, I look like a man who's been given 6 months to live. Why? Because I understand the urgency of the situation. What I help people to do is to get into that gear, understand what is appropriate, and then how to behave on a daily basis so they're maximizing that opportunity.
And I love that. And I mean, to me, that's something that I very much believe in, and I very much teach, is this idea of the pursuit of excellence. The idea that, you write the history of your life every single day with your actions. And so your behaviors, the choices that you make, dictate what is going to be the history of your life. And so you making the choice, I mean, one of the big things that I've really been focused with my coaching people recently on has been the idea of standards, what the standards you have for your life are. Like, because my business needs to reflect those standards. My life needs to reflect those standards. So like an example, I talk about it all the time, but it's one that I very much believe in. It's like, I show up. So if you said to me, hey, Josh, I got to move this weekend and I need some help moving. And I say to you, Mike, you know what? I'll be there. You know what? If I'm not there, Mike, you're calling the morgue, because that's the only way that I don't show. I say I'm going to be someplace, I'm there. And I'll tell you what, you hire 3 18-year-olds to help you move, I'll move more stuff than they do. Why? Because when I show up in force. That's how I live my life. Because you want to know something? When they're standing over my box, getting ready to dump me in the ground, I want them to say, you know what? This guy was crazy, talked a lot, whatever. But you know what? If he said he was going to be someplace, he was there. And he was really—
He was the guy showing up for the move with the donuts and was still there when we were buying beer at the end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Always. And because, look, to me, that's part of a life well lived. And so and my sales business is a crown jewel in my life, right? It is a piece of my life that is commensurate and consistent with all of my life. Because here's the thing, my dad's generation got this really right. They got a lot of their value from the quality of work that they did. I remember being in a car with one of his guys that he used to work with, and we passed a car built in the 60s. And the guy says, you see that car? Look at the space in the doors in that. I put the doors on that car.
Yeah.
Like,
and those doors aren't coming off, and you can punch that door and it's not going to dent. That car is well made.
He 40 years he worked on an assembly line, right? But every door he put on was a reflection of him. We do work today to get paid for what we consider real life, which is the stuff that we do outside of work.
Well, and Josh, those guys were, burnished in a fire of depression and a fire of World War II and what came after that. You and I don't have the benefit of that. We're from a generation that's lazy, undisciplined. We got the participation trophies. It was a different time. My generation, I'm a little older than you, but even me growing up in the, being born in the 60s, growing up in the 70s, 80s, we all got those participation trophies. It was a different thing. And what I found myself is that at the age of 19 years old, I'd been arrested 3 times from partying, overdoing it, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Now, it turned out, I'm Irish, and I had succumbed to what had been the downfall of my family for generations and generations, which was alcoholism. I didn't choose that. It happened to be it just happened to be the fact of my life. And I met some guys that helped me to overcome that. They sat me down and said, this motivation of you going to jail, that's not going to last. You have to make a sacred, no matter what, commitment to doing one damn thing every single solitary day. And I did that, and it got me through to a point where I've been sober now for decades. And it wasn't until I got sick and tired of being sick and tired of going through this cycle of boom and bust, because I was resting on my laurels all the time in the business world, in my sales career. I said, you know what? Motivation doesn't work. Inspiration doesn't last. I
Yep.
need to replace that with a no matter what commitment to do just a handful of things every day that move the needle. And in our business, Josh, and what we do, what moves the needle is knocking on a door saying, hello, you don't know me, but would you consider giving my business a shot? My company a shot at doing business with you. Would you take a look at a proposal? It's free. It's going to change your life for the following reasons. Would you just let me make an appointment with you to come back and show you a specific design for your home, your family, and show you how it changes your future? It's absolutely free. Why the hell would you not take a look at that? And knowing that when I asked 30 people to do that, 28 of them are going to say, no, you're ugly. Right? If you went to a dance and you asked 30 women to dance and 28 of them said, no, you're ugly, like literally said that, dude, that would be a devastating experience of rejection. You nailed it. You said, that fear, that thought of what that rejection will be like. Now, in reality, if you went to a dance and you asked 30 people to dance, would any of them have said, no, you're ugly? Probably not. They probably would have just said, no, thank you. I don't feel like dancing, or I've already been asked to dance. I'm waiting for something. No one said, no, you're ugly. But that doesn't matter. It feels like they said, no, you're ugly, and you walk away crushed. But if you stayed at it, most people would have been knocked out of the saddle by the third or fourth, no, you're ugly. Mm-hmm. But if you stayed at it and asked 30 people to dance, 2 of them would have said, why not? Sure, let's have a dance. And maybe one of those 2 people ends up being the love of your life for the next 6 days or 6 weeks or 6 years or whatever that happens to be. You would look back on that dance and say, that dance was pretty productive. Like, I think I'm going to go back and go do that dance. But if you get knocked out of the saddle on the 3rd or 4th, no, you're ugly, you're toast. And it is no less than that. When you're out knocking on doors going, hey, would you give me a shot? Would you give my company a shot at getting your business? And they slam the door in your face, or they say no thank you. Most of the time they say no thank you. Once in a while you get an a-hole and he decides to take his bad day out on you. You're just out doing your damn job, but he comes down on you, you get knocked off the horse and you're sitting there on your butt. If you pick yourself up and get to the next door and do that 30 times, you're going to say some stuff. They're going to say some stuff. You're going to walk away without a yes almost every single time, except that one time. Oh, yep. Wait, no, it was 2 times. Oh, wait, no, you're world class. You've gone from a 300 batting average to a 400. Oh, wait, 3 people out of 30 said, you know what? I'd take a look. I would take a look. And if you're a typical closer, you're going to get 3 shots at bat. You're going to close one of them. Oh, wait, you've taken the time to put your energy and investment into getting the skills to be a world-class closer. No, you're going to get 2 out of 3. Mm-hmm. And here you got kicked in the face 28 times out of 30, and now you're sitting dealing with a $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 adjustment to your income because you went and did the numbers. And any rational person would look back on that and go, dude, I'd do that all day long. But I can't get people to do that consistently to save my life because of their perception of what that rejection is going to feel like. Not what it did feel like. No, thank you. Thanks for stopping by. That wasn't so bad. It's the thought of what it's going to feel like, and that creates the resistance. It turns into inertia. Next thing you know, you're in the weeds. Next thing you know, you're telling somebody, I tried that sales thing once. It just didn't work out for me.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, there's a few things that we really get wrong in sales. One of them is that idea of getting ourselves wrong, getting the idea that we're the CEO of our business and we need to take and be responsible and treat ourselves like an employee. But one of the other things that I think is really important is defining the win. And you've done a very good job of that, of saying, look, because if I, as a sales guy, what salespeople do a lot, especially in real estate, this is really bad because in real estate, there's always 10 other things that you should be doing that you're not doing. Right.
Seem more important.
Yeah. Like I should be making more marketing pieces. I should be doing more networking, whatever. One of the important things that I do is in the morning, and I'm a big believer in this, is I have like 5 minutes of CEO time. And the staff is not invited to that meeting. Staff's not allowed. I have the meeting that says, okay, look, I'm trying to build a business here. What do I need to get done today to build that business? I got to knock on 30 doors, 50 doors, whatever. I got to take and I got to make marketing, whatever the activities are. Then I invite the staff into that meeting. I say, all right, Josh, let me talk to you for a second. We've had some problems with you performing the way we need you to. So let me tell you what you got to get done. You got to do this before the end of the day. I don't care how you do it. I don't care when you do it. As long as you get these 30 door knocks, 40 door, whatever done,
Right.
You don't have any problem with me. And here's the great thing, Mike. When I do that, after I'm done knocking on that last door, done doing the last thing I got to do, I go home and I don't have to worry about it because I've done exactly what I set out to do. One of the things we don't do in sales well is we don't define the win before it happens. What does a win look like for me today? Because I don't want to take and change the world today. I want to be a little better than I was yesterday.
So Josh, one of the things I wrote this book about was a breakthrough that I had, because people have been telling me my entire life, sales is about the numbers. And yet I was consistently not doing the numbers. I had ambition. I had desire. I wanted to be at the very top of an industry. Why was I not consistently doing the numbers? And so I had to go back to that room where those guys taught me. One of the things I've done perfectly in my life is I've not had a drink for 38 years. How did I do that? By doing one thing perfectly, one thing. And that's not going from 0 to 1, not creating any momentum on having the first drink, first drug, whatever, right? And when I talk about being an alcoholic addict, I was like this. I was like a serious, actual addict. And what I did was I had to change addictions from things that were bad for me to things that were good. Og Mandino said, create great habits and become their slave. And that was the breakthrough that I had about 5 or 6 years ago. How can I have the same success in my business life that I've had in the life of not destroying myself, right? And in my book, I have a chapter called Kill What's Killing You. If there's something killing you, if you're, if you are an alcoholic, you are an addict, you're a gambling this or whatever that or whatever, if there's something that's killing you, going to a Tony Robbins seminar is not going to help you. Like, you need to kill off the thing that's killing you and then start replacing bad habits with really good habits and become their slave. And what I found out for me is that going from 0 to 1 was the whole ball game. That's momentum. And it's overcoming that inertia and being a victim to inertia and to start becoming the beneficiary of momentum. And I learned that the real money comes from the word no. In our solar industry, I got the sun shining through this word no. And I found out that it wasn't the yeses that got me paid. It was the work.
Yep.
And the work was going to get the no's. The breakthrough for me, because I'm a closer and I'm a really good closer, I thought all the money came from yeses. And if I didn't get a yes, that was failure. It was rejection. It was devastation. I learned that all the money came from going to the door, picking up the phone, sitting down with a client and getting them to say no. That's the work. Like talking to, for me, when I knock on, it takes me about 7 conversations to have one person say, and that's, I'm world class in that level. I'm Hall of Fame level on knocking on doors, cold calling. I've been cold calling since I was 12. I'm pretty much Hall of Fame level in that regard. I'm the batting 400 in the major leagues, right? So what does that mean? I have to have 7 conversations to get one person to say yes. That's still a devastating amount of rejection.
It is.
If I think a no is a devastating event, as opposed to understanding that's what I get paid for. I literally calculate how many people I speak to, sets how many appointments, creates how many closes, creates this much money. And I know that I make about $500 every time somebody says to me, no, thank you. And I've been able to internalize that. You talked about defining the win. There's the win.
Absolutely.
It's not the 7th guy that says, well, what the hell? I mean, sure, I'll take a look. That's not the win. The win is getting the door slammed in your face and going, you know what? One more, one more, one more, one more, one more, one more. Oh, sure, I'll take a look. That's where the win comes from. How do you propel yourself through it? That's the whole ball game.
Absolutely. Look, it is running out every ground ball because eventually they're going to make an error and you'll be standing on first base. Right.
There you go.
And so but one of the things that you said there that was really resonates is the idea of habits. And I'm a big believer in habits, and talking about becoming a slave to good habits. I think that leaves out what's currently going on. For most of us, we are the slaves of bad habits that we've built up through life. We're slaves. And I use that word in its
tough word.
It's slaves.
Like,
we are
almost afraid
enslaved.
It's almost afraid to bring that word into a conversation. Like, it's not been going on since the history of man. Man has been enslaved since the history of man. Those people that are chained with handcuffs, golden handcuffs to that steering wheel, driving to that office. I mean, could they make another decision? Yes. Do they know? They're literally enslaved to this process that keeps them in enough money to not get evicted.
And by enslaved, one of the things I'm talking about, one of the habits that we have is this enslavement that we have to comfort, this avoiding pain. We are enslaved to activities that only give us pleasure and avoid pain. How much of the world does that take away from us? I mean, how much of the possibilities do we lose because we have this addiction to, it doesn't feel good, I got to make it stop.
Yeah.
And so, recognizing that you're a junkie, that you're an addict, and you're addicted to pleasure. And you have to have the come to Jesus meeting with yourself and say, will I go through my life as a slave? Because most people will, and most people will live lives half lived.
Yeah.
And so if there's one thing that scares me, Mike, it's turning in a life half lived. I realize all the opportunities that I've let pass me by. I realize all the times that I've gone short. And so I've come up short of what I could have. And so there was something my uncle said, and it's actually mirrors something else my father had told me for years. He says, I figure out how to say yes to things. Rather than figuring out how to say no, I figure out how to say yes. How can I squeeze a little bit more out? How can I get on a podcast with Mike and have a great time hanging out this morning after having an hour and a half's worth of sleep coming back on a red eye from Hawaii? Yeah. Well, you know what? I think I can get enough caffeine in me to take and have that conversation with Mike. Yeah, let's do that. Let's figure that out. It doesn't make me a rock star, guys. I just don't want to miss out on this good stuff.
Well, and I tell you what really drives me and what motivates me, and it goes back to that idea that men in their 50s, Napoleon Hill talks about it, they have a little bit of an edge in that they no longer under this disillusionment that they have all the time in the world, right? They start to become very, very focused that they have this fine. It helps that they start chasing they've stopped chasing a lot of other things, right? That you're doing when you're younger. And now you're like, okay, dude, it is time to start to chase the legacy. It's time to start chasing security. It's time to start chasing a lifestyle that when you want to have after you're done working every single solitary day. And so that's key. But what I look for, I am in a legitimate gold rush. Solar is it's the largest transfer of wealth in the history of mankind. Right? Energy, that's the big money in this world, right? And it's going to go away in the next 10 years from fossil fuels and go into renewables. And we're literally in the solar world, we're an army of people carrying out that mission. That's an existential threat for the planet. If we keep doing what we're doing, we will screw the pooch. And so we have one family at a time have to convert them to renewables. And of course, the government's making it super easy because they provide 30% of the money. Have you ever sold anything where the government says, here's 30% of the money? So we knock on the door, go, hey, if you go solar and it costs 30 grand, the government's going to give you 10 of it. They're going to give you 30% of the money. The customer's like, okay, that's weird. That doesn't make any sense. So here we are in this legitimate gold rush. What drives me is, yes, I want to be at the top of the leaderboard. Yes, I want to have a $40,000 paycheck in a week. Yes, that drives me. But what really drives me is what you're talking about, a life half lived. Am I going to do gold rushes last forever? No. Gold rushes, and do they come around every 10 minutes? I'm in an industry with a lot of 22-year-olds. I'll show you the audience here. There's a lot of 22-year-olds under 22. They think, well, then this gold rush comes by, I'll just catch the next bus. You and I know gold rushes don't come by every 10 minutes, man. When you find one, you better milk that son of a gun for all you're worth. What drives me is looking back 5 years from now and realizing I was one of those guys in that gold rush. And instead of making the most of it, I decided to utilize it so I could just work about 1/4 of the time and be filled with profound regret. I live in fear of that kind of regret. And that fear of that kind of regret is what's going to get me up and over this stupid little irrational idea that I'm going to knock on a door and go, hey, would you take a look at a free quote? And they're going to say, no, thank you. How is that some sort of devastating event? I don't know, but the psychological resistance to doing it is mind blowing. I've been doing this for years. I wish if I had a pill that could get rid of that, I could just line up millionaires, and I don't have a pill for it. And not only that, I got to tell you, Josh, it's getting worse. The longer I do this, the better I get at it, the more sophisticated the resistance, the more the idea comes that I should be spending my time being a VP instead of out knocking doors this afternoon. I gotta hack my way into making sure I do the one thing that generates all the money. So I got all these people here that are going to go knock doors with me this afternoon. If that's not a hack, I don't know what is a hack. There's no way that I can't show up to knock doors this afternoon. So
absolutely,
that's really the key. It's transferring.
I love it, man. Mike, I love it because you're talking about all these things that our society says to stay away from. You said fear is one of your motivations.
Yeah.
You mean you allow a negative emotion to take and govern? Yeah, you know what? I'm afraid of missing out on what this life could be, and that fear drives me to greatness.
Right.
I might not do it. You want to know how I go to the gym, Mike? I got 4 other guys that depend on me to train them at the gym. That's how I make sure I show up, because if they're going to be there waiting for me, I got to show.
I met Tim Grover a few years ago, and that was Michael Jordan's, physical trainer coach, mindset coach. Went through all those championships with him. I got a chance to meet him, spend time with him. He wrote a book called Relentless. I said, dude, I saw Michael Jordan put not 1, but not 2, but 3 shots in at the buzzer against my Phoenix Suns to take us out of the championship run. And he goes on to win that ring. I'm like, that dude doesn't have a choke button. Like, he doesn't have, like, other humans have this choke thing. When everyone in the building knows the ball's coming to you at the buzzer, I know it's not going in. He knows it is going in. That's the opposite of choke. I said, how does that man live without a choke button? He goes, no, you're getting it wrong, Mike. You don't think he has a choke button? Watch Michael Jordan in college. That man choked. He was like every other human being. The reason he's not choking is he's been in the gym and made that shot 5,000 times in the last 90 days. He's not wondering if it goes in. His mind's not operating. Choke is taken out of it because his muscle memory knows how to get that ball from that spot on the court literally almost every time out of 5,000 times. There's no question it's going in, but that's because he's done the work, not because he's somehow, he won the lottery on talent. That's not what made that ball go in. It's doing the work every single solitary day. So I met him. It inspired me to start. He called Michael Jordan and Kobe, he called them cleaners. It motivated me because I'm not a morning guy. When I say I'm lazy and undisciplined, I'm not screwing around. Yeah. Like, I get up every day in a ball of anxiety that keeps me hitting the snooze button. I figured out a way to break the snooze button habit. That was my friend Hal Elrod, Miracle Morning. He's got a 5-step method for breaking the snooze button habit. And then doing something every day. That's my other friend, Stephen Guy, says, here, create mini habits. Do 1 push-up. What the hell, 1 push-up? That's absurd. Yeah, try doing 1 push-up, by the way. Once you break the inertia and do 1, the chances of you not doing a 2nd, 3rd, and then 10th push-up and 20th are almost 0. Yep. But the chances of you doing 1 push-up are pretty darn close to 0. So those are the things that started. But I started this call. He called Michael Jordan a cleaner. So I started this call called the Cleaners Club. And I got like literally 2 guys to commit to do it. Next thing you know, there were 15 guys on it. I've since changed the name of that, since that was Tim Grover's word, cleaners, right? He trademarked that. So I had to come up with the No Matter What Club. So every single morning at 8 a.m. Arizona time, I've got a call going. And there's 50 people on this call, and it's a mastermind of people who are bound and determined to get ourselves going from 0 to 1. Getting on that call is a 0 to 1. Being awake at 8 in the morning and not in your pajamas is a 0 to 1. But then how are we going to get on one door and ask one customer, hey, would you take a look at a proposal, and get a no, not a yes? Get to the door and get a no. That's the mini habit. That's the no matter what commitment. And that's the difference of inertia or momentum.
And I in so many ways, and I mean, the one that comes to my mind as you talk about that, Mike, is 100% writing my book. When I wrote my first book, and actually the second book too, I just finished my second book, supposed to be coming out here sometime next year. But the hardest thing was to go sit down in front of the computer and open Word and start working on the book. Once I did it, I mean, because I'm much more of an evening person than a morning person. I'll still get up, 7, 8 o'clock.
Me too. Yeah.
Unfortunately,
the rest of the world works on mornings.
What about? I'm not worried about them. From 11 o'clock at night till 2 o'clock in the morning, that's when I wrote my books.
Yeah,
both of my books.
Too.
Because all those annoying morning people went to bed, so I could actually get some work done, right? But the hardest thing was getting my butt off the couch after having dinner and getting in there and just sitting down. If I sat down and I opened it and I just started to read the last little bit and start editing a little bit, next thing you know, I'm working for hours and the time evaporates. But look, I think the simplest way to put it is this. This is a society right now that is fascinated with how to hack things to make things work better. And they spend so much time and mental energy on the hack. Here's the freaking hack. Do the freaking work. It's actually easier than trying to figure out the freaking hack. The work,
So
the
Josh,
work's
if
not
you
that
can't
bad.
beat them, if you can't beat them, maybe you got to join them. I've literally come up with a whole series of hacks. And you know who they're for? They're for me. I'm the guy who says I'm going to do that one thing and then not do it. So here's one of my hacks. You're out. So number one, I've created my no matter what habit is, and I'm at a point in my career where I'm in 2 or 3 presentations a day, right? So why? Because a lot of people want me to run their appointments. I have tons of referrals. It's like, I can't stop having 2 or 3 appointments a day. So my no matter what commitment is, I'm not allowed, this is kind of a hack, kind of a habit. I'm not allowed back in my car. Like I got my bag on my shoulder. I'm not allowed back to my car to put the bag down. Why? If I put the bag down in my car, I'm going to look at my phone, find something more important. I got to go down one driveway, up another driveway, and find one neighbor to tell me no before I can go put my bag down. Now that's a commitment. That's a no matter what commitment to do something. That habit's worth $100,000 a year.
Yep.
But sometimes even if I can't, they say in our business, we really do knock on doors, by the way. This isn't a figment of speech. All of us in this room, we are literally going out to knock on doors this afternoon, right? It's not a figment of speech. We knock on doors. It's literally brutal. It's the most psychologically difficult thing to get yourself to do. Literally, we say the hardest door is the front door. And the next hardest door is the car door, right? So sometimes I can't get out the car door. So I literally have this hack. I go and I park by the mailbox of a development and I get on my phone and I screw off. Can you handle that? Like, Josh, could we make a commitment, you and I and me today, that if you can't go knock on the door, you could at least get to a neighborhood where there are doors and go sit in front of the mailbox in your car and screw off on Facebook or Instagram or whatever you do. Could you make a commitment to do that? And then here's the deal. When somebody comes to their mailbox, they come to the mailbox when they're on their way to their home, not usually when they're leaving. I call this the stalker hack. We're literally going to stalk the person to their house. We're going to peek around the corner as they pull up into their driveway. And now we got one person that we know is home. We're going to walk up as they're getting the groceries out of the car and go, hey, look, I'm here, you're here. Can I give you a business card? Right? So go screw off. You can't get out of the car door, go do it in front of the mailbox, follow one person home, get onto that person's driveway when they're getting the groceries, say hello to that one person. Now you've talked to somebody without knocking on a door. That's a hack.
Look, you know what? Finding better ways to do the work is always good. But at the end of the day, it boils down to the same thing always, which is you got to find ways as the CEO of your business. You got to find ways that function best with the way you're wired to get the work done. If you as the CEO in the morning determine this is what I got to get done, now you're left with, okay, how the hell am I going to actually get that done? And that's a much better place than, well, gee, I need to go out and work today. Well, when you're the employee, what does that mean? Well, sitting in front of the mailbox, jerking around on Instagram the whole time can easily be what you think work. Well, you know, I was at work for 10. I worked for 10 hours today.
Hey, Josh, did they name are you named after one of the ancestors that named the car Cadillac? Is that part of your history?
Actually, the car company was started by a gentleman by the name of Leland. Leland started the car company actually because a friend of his was helping a lady whose car wouldn't start, and it was a crank car, and the car backfired, broke the guy's arm, and the guy died from complications from the broken arm. And so he was the guy that came up with the electric starter for cars and whatever, it went on from there. But no, Cadillac was actually a French general that there's a body of water in Detroit, and that's what
I got you. After. So one of my favorite stories in all of salesdom is Alec Baldwin sitting up in front of the whole sales meeting, right? And he's going to have Kevin Spacey's the sales manager. He's the guy from downtown. Lee and Murray or whatever sent him down to do the sales meeting. He's holding up the brass balls and he's saying, these are what you don't have, pal. Hey, put down that coffee, right? But reminds me of your last name. He says, guys, we're going to have a sales contest. first prize, brand new Eldorado Cadillac, right? Yep. I got recruited away from a company to come work for my competitor. Didn't want to go. They were Darth Vader until they said, you know what, Mike, come on over here. We're going to buy you a brand new Cadillac. And I had that flash of vision from Alec Baldwin, brand new Cadillac. Never had a brand new car, never had a Cadillac. That was my first of like 10 Cadillacs in a row after that. But in the movie, he says, first prize, brand new Cadillac, second prize, set of steak knives.
Yep.
And the whole audience is like, that's a pretty big jump. kind of a humorous little gap there. Don't know what that's about. Well, I was coming out of that sales room. I was selling in the 1980s when that movie was depicted, Al Pacino, all those guys. And the way we got our appointments in those days was that we would knock on doors. We would talk to the lady of the house because she was home in the afternoon back in that day. And we'd say, hey, can we come in, can we have an appointment to come and see you later on the evening when your husband's home? And she's like, oh, he's going to kill me if I make an appointment with a salesman. And we say, but just for having us over, you're going to get a brand new set of steak knives. Yep. And so the joke that the audience isn't in on in that famous scene is that every guy in that room, not only is there a big gap between a new Cadillac and a set of steak knives, but every guy in that room literally has 30 sets of steak knives in the trunk of his car. That makes that so much further of a gap. You remember what third prize was?
You're fired.
You're fired. Hit the bricks, pal. And Absolutely. By the way, if you make that 1 or 2 spot, you're going to get the Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross leads. And everybody in the room is going, oh, they got this little gold bow on them. They all want those Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross bows. That's what we all want, right? We all want those Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross leads. And at the end of the day, they don't exist.
They don't.
We've got to go out and make them exist.
And knowing your product, knowing what makes it good, thinking about it from the standpoint of the customer, it's such an important part of sales in general, because one of the big knocks and this is something I dealt with in my first book, is the idea that and it's more of a modern idea, I guess, is that capitalism somehow is evil. And the thing is, my brother's a philosophy professor, so he kind of he dropped this on me one day. He said, they say it's all about profit. The first thing you have to consider in a capitalist country in order to get ahead is what the other person needs and how you can give it to them better than they can get it someplace else.
That's right.
And that's the reason why it works so well, because everybody's sitting here trying to figure out how to get the other person something better than they can get someplace else. This is why it works as well as it does, and why our standard of living is as good as it is. And so, when you take a look at your product, and this is one of the big transitions, I think, for a lot of people in sales. When you start in sales, a lot of times you're just trying to figure out, what you're supposed to say, what you're supposed to script, whatever, and transitioning yourself to thinking like the actual customer. And how would I need this explained to me? How could I get this explained to me in such a way that it's most appealing, that it's actually checking the things that I care about? It's something that is really when sales starts to get a lot easier, is when you start doing the great work of really understanding your customer and understanding what they need. And so for me, that was one of the other things in sales. We get ourselves wrong in sales a lot, and we get our customer wrong in sales a lot.
Well, I love where you're going with this, because we all think somehow the money's for being some slick talking God's gift to closing. In the end of the day, the money is for the work, and the work is a service. And I got to tell you what, when you think about, I live in Phoenix, Arizona. Our biggest season is during the summer, because that's when people have their $600, $700, $800 electric bills. We have this whole thing that happens in the utility space that causes a deadline that everybody's all up in arms about. And so we're making the most of that. That means we're knocking on doors in 115 degrees. If you don't think that going door to door to door, going up a driveway, knocking on a door, having a conversation, getting the door slammed in your face, I'm an expert on this thing that's literally a existential threat to the planet. You will be switching from fossil fuels over to green new energy, because they're going to get rid of fossil fuels. They're literally, this new infrastructure bill and this new Inflation Reduction Act literally is going to be funded by taxing fossil fuels. We're going to tax them to death. We are going to meet our ambitions as a company to reduce our emissions by the end of this decade. Dude, that's a monumental. That's like Kennedy saying we're going to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. You're like, how in the world are we going to reduce our emissions in half by the end of the decade? I'll tell you how we're going to do it. We're going to offer incentives. The smart people will take those, but the herd's going to move because the stick's coming out. Yeah, the carrot will get some people to move, but the stick's coming. And what the stick is that we're going to make fossil fuels so expensive. Have you seen the gas pump lately? That's what's happening to your electric bill as well. It's going to double and triple by the end of the decade. This thing is moving. Not even an army can stop an idea whose time has come. It has come. This is going to happen. There's no way to stop it. And I'm an expert at this. You're going to have this impact your life in such a dramatic way you can't see straight. And all of a sudden there's a man or a woman on your door and they know everything there is to know about it. And all you know is you've been doing this, la, 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 don't talk to me. I don't want to know anything. My strategy is ignorance. And there's a man on your door who knows everything there is to know. And all you got to do is ask me questions. I'll tell you everything there is to know about this existential threat and the solution. And I'm making myself available for as long as you need to have that conversation. Dude, that's a service. And I don't know how I got so lucky, Josh, that the service I perform happens to pay $1.5 million a year. But if that makes me a lottery winner, then I'll take that lottery winning every time. But that's what the service I do pays. And I'm glad about that. But I'll tell you what, it's paid that year after year after year after year after year. And you might fool somebody one year by pulling a fast one and getting paid a lot of money on some sort of, this, that, whatever kind of scam. But dude, year after year after year, that must mean what you're doing is worth that. And the job that I do is worth that kind of money to this planet because the planet's paying that kind of money for this job.
Sure. No, it makes sense. And, I understand suffering through having to make $1.5 million, $2 million a year. It's a burden, but it's tough. It seems like you've come to terms with handling it though. And, I can appreciate the kind of sacrifices you make here. So Mike, the way I like to end these, because it's getting near that time, is maybe to kind of hit you with a couple of questions real quick. Sure. Just to kind of understand you a little bit. What would you say you're most proud of in business that you've accomplished?
Still being, people look at this industry and it's full of 22-year-olds, right? And people see the old guy with gray hair and they think, my God, how are you keeping up? As opposed to, how are you leading the way? And so in my industry, having achieved this level of sales, they give you this award called a Golden Door Award. And somehow I've managed to win 2 of those, not one of them, but 2 of them every year, year after year after year. I'm pretty proud of that. That's why someone said, maybe you should write a book. Like, can we figure out how to teach people to do this? So I've endeavored on that. This whole room full of people is full of people that want to know how to do that. We're going to be talking about that all day today. Mm-hmm. Then we're going to go out and knock doors. So what am I proud of? I'm proud that I'm going to be knocking doors this afternoon, showing people how to do that. There were 24 people in our industry that got one of those awards last year, and 6 of them were on my team. So if you ask me what I'm proud of, that's what I'm proud of, creating a recipe. So the book is called No Matter What, and it's the recipe to a 7-figure income. I figured out a way to make this repeatable over and over and over and over again and be able to pass that recipe on to other people. I got guys that were managing a grocery store 2 years ago, came to work for me 1 year ago, and in their first year literally made $750,000. Dude, I am proud of that.
Yeah, I would be too. So what one piece of advice would you give somebody listening to this today? If you could give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, and so I'd say I've had a couple of breakthroughs. I got super lucky in that room that I walked into. I walked into 2 rooms when I was a young man. One was the guys that taught me not to go from 0 to 1 with alcohol and drugs. That saved my life. I wouldn't be here. Like literally, I would be dead in prison, something like that. But the other guys that taught me how to sell and close, that taught me when I get that opportunity, after I've knocked on 30 doors and 3 of them said, sure, I'll take a look. When I get to the kitchen table and I'm sitting with somebody, I'm the adult in the room that needs to know this is not the meeting about the meeting. This is the frickin' meeting. We're sitting here to do business. And my job is to not buy the objection that somehow the customer believes, and he thinks this is true, he happens to be wrong, that he's better off if he chooses a path of procrastination and not execute and start the process, which bring all the benefits. It's at that point in time that I know that it's now my turn to do my job. It's my turn to go to work. They've brought me to their kitchen table, which is where they make decisions. They asked me there to help them make a decision. And somehow I'm going to buy the objection that procrastination is a better course and that they're going to be better off if they literally do nothing and end up doing nothing versus taking advantage of this. I got to be the grown up in the room. The chapter in my book on closing is called I'm Not Coming Back. And that's not a joke. I'm going to explain to somebody at the beginning, when I'm at their door making an appointment, they're going to know we're going to have a meeting. And at that meeting, we're going to cover really important business. And that is not the meeting about the meeting. And at the beginning of that conversation, they're going to know that this is going to happen and that this is not going to happen again. I'm not coming back. And if you say that wrong, you're just going to piss off a customer.
Yep.
And those old timers that were selling aluminum siding back in the day when I learned how to sell solar, they knew how to do that. They showed me how to do it. They showed me how to execute close 1, close 2, close 3, close 4, close 5, and to just stay in the pocket. How long does a solar presentation last? Until they ask you to leave or they're signing
Absolutely.
one of those two types of things. And dude, if you buy that objection and agree to coming back on Friday, you have let that customer down. Like, I believe that's a service. I believe that's my actual job. And I'm going to stay in the pocket and fire bullets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 until they ask me to leave or they're signing up and they're moving forward with solar. And that's the one piece of advice. So find a way to get going and get from 0 to 1. But when you're there, you got to know what your job is. And if you're a closer, that's your job.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. Good stuff. So Mike, what's next for you? You've written the book, you're doing sales. What's the next thing, the next project, the next thing that's on the horizon for you?
So the next book is going to be the 9-figure mindset. That's one of the chapters in this book. I'm on track and in process to create a 9-figure exit from the solar industry in about 6 or 7 years. And so what does that mean? If people are trying to pay their bills every day and trying to not get evicted, they will never find this gear. I can't help you if you need about $80,000 to live or $120,000 to live, and somehow that's your motivation. If I can't execute on my job, which is to help you find a different motivation, which is literally a 7-figure income, which should produce in a small number of years an 8-figure net worth, that's done that for me. And now that you've got an 8-figure net worth, how are you going to put that to work with investments, with being a real entrepreneur, using that capital? Now that you don't have to work for somebody else, how about working for yourself? And now that you know how to sell at such a high level, how about you start some kind of a business, some kind of company, sell the holy shit out of it, train other people to sell the holy heck out of it, build that thing off and sell it for a couple $100 million. That's done in America every single solitary day. I'm doing it right now. I built an $80 million a year business selling solar. We're going to blow that up by a 10x, and someone will come by and, pay a couple $100 million for it. That'll be my 9-figure. That'll be my 9-figure exit from, my career, from my solar, endeavor. And then I'll be doing this every single, no matter what call. I'll be doing that call from my yacht at the Mediterranean. I'll be tied up right outside of Monaco and doing what I like to do. I'll still be working. I'll be the solar salesman emeritus, but that'll be happening from my fully staffed yacht in the Mediterranean. That takes a 9-figure net worth to pull that off. Yep. If you followed me around, you would be today part of what's going on today, putting on this call with you today, making all these things. How many things do I have going on at the same time? Why? I mean, literally, if I said to you, your kid needs an operation and there's $1 million needed to pay for that operation, there's no insurance, and you got 1 year to make it. Dude, could you find some motivation around that? Right. If you were to follow me around, you would think one of my kids was given a year to live. Why? Because I can taste that 9 figures. That 9 figures happening. I'm on my way to do that. Otherwise, my 8-figure net worth, I'd be, cashing in my chips, being an RV guy, having made enough money to keep an RV on the road.
Yep. No, I hear you. Look, one of my good friends, a broker that I know, he tells his new agents, he said, they start to fall short of their goals. He says, look, if I told you that I was going to bring in and torture and murder your family, could you make these calls?
Yes.
Then what the hell's stopping you? It's you stopping you. Yeah. How does it make any sense?
Yeah. So I knew what it was like to be lazy and undisciplined. You'd have followed me around in my 40s. You'd be like, dude, you got like the rest, you got like eons. to try to make some sort of a retirement thing happen. And what kind of retirement is that going to look like? Dude, if I wish I had the 40s back again and be doing this again. I tell you what, I didn't find that till I was in my 50s. My mission today is that one of these 22-year-old kids in this office finds that today in their 20s. And by the time they're 30, there's some rock star lifestyle making an impact on this planet, giving Mr. Bezos and Mr. Elon Musk a run for their money. That's what I want.
One of the things that I think makes sense, if I could kind of just drop something out there for the 22-year-olds out there, one of the most helpful things that I always found was looking at what my culture does and asking myself, does that make any freaking sense? Like, I say this because I'm not in the culture that you're from. I had to look at the culture that I was in and say, because like there was things that my dad's generation got right and things that they got wrong. Yeah. And so I said to myself, you know what? Why don't I start acting like the things that they got right and stop doing the things that we get wrong? And I'll also do the things that my generation gets right. And I'll get the best of both worlds. Yep. And so, taking that look back, again, you're the CEO of the business. You're the one that determines how you go forward. So sitting here, do I need to be on social media? You want to know something? No, I don't. I am not. Why? Because I genuinely don't give a shit what you ate for dinner. And I assume you don't give a shit as to what I ate. I'm not going to take a picture of it. I'm going to eat it. I'm going to enjoy it. Right? How about we live our lives rather than showing it to everyone else and showing this false picture of our life to kind of make other people jealous? That would just
I'll tell you what, I wish I could, if I'd have had the discipline that my dad had. He was born in the Depression, World War II, the whole 9 yards. He did his thing every single solitary day so that, he could retire in a lower middle class deal and live in a lower middle class thing his whole life. And it's like, dude, can you imagine finding the motivation to do that when today we really do? Like in their generation, there weren't supercomputers in everybody's hip. Everybody on the planet wasn't connected to everybody else on the planet in an instantaneous thing. You could not come up with a good idea and become some influencer that was worth millions of dollars. There was no opportunity where you could maybe start a company and build it up over blah, 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 blah. But today, the planet needs a lot of things. There's more and more things that we need every single solitary day. And smart people who know how to craft a solution and then sell the holy heck out of it, and can do that to millions of people. Like you really can. If you push a lawnmower, but do it in an entrepreneurial endeavor, you really can get to a nine-figure. In fact, with that would have been a billionaire back in Carnegie's day, right? $100 million, Rockefeller, $100 million.
$10 million
now with
would have been a
inflation,
billionaire in his
100 million,
day. Absolutely.
That's just kind of a, middle-class rock star, middle-class entertainment star. But that's enough money to put you into homes on multiple coasts, anything you can imagine, a passive income that generates that lifestyle, able to preserve that capital, and jets and helicopters to get between it. So, dude, and at that point, you really have an opportunity to create a legacy, to make profound impacts on the planet. And why wouldn't you be doing that? Or are you going to look back and realize you went through this decade, that decade, and just have nothing but profound regret? Come on.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, regret is a real thing. And, the sand in the hourglass only goes one direction. It really does. And there's this huge perception.
Oh, I'm going to steal that one. I like that.
Oh, absolutely, man. By all means.
Hourglass, one direction.
But let me ask you this. Last two questions.
Okay.
What do you do to unwind?
Well, you don't even want to know. Most people would consider it to be fantastically stressful. There's lots of things I like to do, but I play high stakes Texas Hold'em. By high stakes, I mean $2, $5. You might have $500 on the table. You could win them $500, lose $500 in a night. But why do I sit down in this thing where about every 30 seconds you're forced to make a decision? How in the world is that? I don't know why. I sit down and I just get totally relaxed. I enjoy the game. I'm all in, whatever, win or lose $500 at my economic level. That doesn't really have a big impact on things. But for some reason, when I do that, I'm now thinking about one thing instead of 20 things, and that is relaxing.
I 100%. I can agree with that. That not my particular brand there, but very similar as to what I do. So
cool.
Last question I got for you, Mike.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
So on social media, and I do social media. When I first started getting blown up, when I won 2 of these awards and I had all these people, I'm like, how do I make this stop? I got all these people on my Facebook. Like, is this my new part-time job? Come on. And I'm like, how do I get rid of these guys from hitting me up on Facebook? Until I realized that in today's world, that's currency.
That's how it works.
It's the ability to connect with people. Yeah. So when my book came out, I sold like 3,000 copies in no time. That's because I got people who were waiting for it, who were wanting to see it, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, social media is perfect. Michael O'Donnell Sales. You can type that in all at once. And you got to be careful of these fraud guys on Instagram and Facebook. As soon as you get to be a certain amount of traffic, somebody makes another account that looks just like you. So they'll go Michael O'Donnell with 1 L. And all of a sudden you see my page, it looks like me and people are clicking on it. So it's Michael O'Donnell Sales, and that's ODONNELL, and then sales with an end on it. Then you'll find my social media. I also do this training and coaching at modsalesacademy.com. And what I'm really hoping for, and the real reason I'm doing this work, I am building an army of people that can take advantage of this gold rush and then can help us with this existential mission to convert the world to solar and to green renewable energy. And I'm super proud of being a part of this company called Sun Solar Solutions. So every day somebody reaches out to me. This room is filled up with people who have reached out to me as a part of kind of jamming with guys like you and getting the word out there that there's another way to make a living. And you can, follow me into the solar world.
Absolutely. Look, and that is what social is good for. Social is good for getting the word out about good things.
Yeah,
that's where that's what its value to society is, as opposed to making everybody jealous about what they don't have and what you really don't have. You're only showing them the best parts of everybody's only showing the best parts of their lives. So
there you go.
That's good stuff. Mike, thank you so much for your time, buddy,
Josh.
and for hanging out. And I wish all your 22-year-olds in the room great luck and great success. Go knock on those doors, guys. Do the work. Good things come to those who do the work. That's all I can tell you. I've been doing this a long time myself, too.
This is our Monday morning jam session on getting out there, and we're actually going to go do the work this afternoon. Josh, you've been inspirational. I've been super just eating up every single thing you were talking about. I love jamming with you. I hope to do it again.
Absolutely, Mike. Looking forward to it, my friend. It was absolutely a genuine pleasure hanging out with you.
You bet.
All right, guys. Till next time.